Hey fam, you ain't ready for this.
It's big money, big cars, big moves. This muscle tone, brah, there ain't nothing to prove. The best breeds from the States to the outback. Keep your eyes peeled, guaranteed you gon' learn that. Beanstalk, big boss on lock. If a canine was God, it would be this dog.
Hello everybody, and welcome to another episode of Muscletonebullys. So today we're gonna discuss proper ways of calculating progesterones, types of inseminations, breeding, and also how to pair particular dogs the muscle tone way. That's a question I get a lot of every day, and I figured if I make a live video about it, maybe then it would reduce the amount of messages I have to respond to every day. Not that I mind responding to people, it's just that sometimes it gets overwhelming and I can't keep up, and it gets exhausting and my head starts to spin. But I try to respond to everyone, I try to help everybody. Anyone who's approached me or messaged me can attest to that. Everything's wet. Let's go back inside actually. So progesterones, let's start with that. I know a lot of people use an in-house machine that they've purchased or that they use at a veterinarian lab, or maybe somebody in the breeding community who has a progesterone machine does their progesterone testing. Okay, you're all gonna hate me for this, but don't waste your money on this stuff. These machines are very rarely calibrated properly, and if they are, they only work for a few pulls before they need to be calibrated properly again. And even when they are fully calibrated, they're never accurate. They're about a digit or two off most of the time, sometimes 4 or 5, and sometimes completely off. I have had clients, I'm sure you won't mind me mentioning a few of them. Actually, I'll mention Luke, was the last one I was dealing with. Luke, veterinarian, swore up and down, argued with me that his progesterone system is great and this and that. And I was kept shipping him semen, and the dogs would not take. When he comes down here, his dog takes. So he had a female who he was told she was at an 18.8 on a Monday. I said, well, drive to me right away. Let's do an AI. They drove to me. They arrived the next day. We did an AI, and I pulled a progesterone. And the reason I pulled a progesterone because I didn't trust his veterinarian's machine. And guys, the results came back 2.6 from the laboratory. So imagine being at 18 on Monday, and on Tuesday, when you arrive to me, you're at 2.6, which is not even ovulation. So they stayed here. We kept pulling progesterone. She rised all the way to a 6 by Friday, and she was inseminated on a Sunday and a Monday when her numbers were around 16 to 18. And those are lab progesterones. And she conceived, and it worked. So, and just basic AIs as well. There was no surgical or anything applied. So the reason his breedings weren't taken is because the timing was wrong. Timing is everything when you're doing a breeding, okay? So that's number one. So laboratories, if you find a lab by you that you can sign up with, we have an account with the lab here. That's in Miami. They pick up from our house. We pull the blood. We have a box in the front of our facility. They come, they drive by, they pick up. Sometimes they pick up at 10 p.m. at night. The drivers just drive throughout the night picking up blood work and cultures and stuff like that for the laboratory. So the reason these machines work better, and I'm going to explain to you, is they cost millions of dollars. These are laboratories who run for hospitals, for humans, and for everyone else, not just for the animals and the dogs. And they run all kinds of testing, so they use the best of best equipment, and they can't afford to have errors or mistakes because that can cost them a life. So you cannot compare those to these small, tiny machines. And in the progesterone machines, IDEX is probably the best second-hand machine you could purchase, and even then, very often they're not always calibrated properly, and it's an issue. And everybody says, "Oh, it calibrates itself," or "This one does this." Guys, trust me, they do not operate as well as a laboratory. They never will. It's just we're not there yet, technology-wise. Now, let's discuss the second step: insemination. Once you have the proper timing is number one, the most important. Once you have the proper timing, the next thing in line is type of insemination you're going to use. Now, AIs work fine. Most of my AIs, I do quite a few AIs here. People come down and use, like I had a gentleman come down about 5 weeks or 6 weeks ago. Obviously used the lab in Miami for the progesterone, came down on time. We did one AI with King Kong. Dog was full of pups. I had another gentleman come down also about 30 days ago, called me yesterday. One AI, full of pups. No surgical, no nothing. Most of the time, AIs work just fine. And if you have access to the dog and you can do several AIs, that works great. Remember, progesterones are still important because that's what you time your C-section with. You need the proper progesterone with the ovulation date because you're going to count 63 days from ovulation, and you're going to know that that's the day your puppies are supposed to be born. You could maybe do it the night before. I prefer to wait the 63 days if possible. Of course, you got to keep an eye on the dog regardless of progesterones, making sure temperature is okay, ultrasound to make sure that, the puppy's heart rates are not dropping or there's anything going on. But at the most part, 99.9% of the time, you have a laboratory progesterone and you get the ovulation day exactly between 6 and 10. 63 days from that day is when your puppies are due, and it's when you're going to cut it open and take them out. Remember, some of the bullies do not go into labor. I've had dogs have a puppy stuck in them while they're eating a piece of chicken. And this goes back as far as 15 years ago. So it's even worse now. They don't always go into labor. So progesterone numbers are so important, guys. They're so important. I couldn't begin to tell you. Now, back to the insemination. AIs work just fine. Transcervical, I know a lot of people swear by them that they're as good as a surgical, and they tell you that, it goes into the same place. It does not go into the same place, okay? And I've heard veterinarians use that stupid line, and it's just to push the transcervical because it's easier for them, quicker for them, less costly for them, and they make way more profit on it. The truth is, a surgical is your best way, especially if you're using frozen semen. If you're using frozen semen and you're using any type of insemination that's not a surgical, your chances are much lower of it to conceive because the semen has to travel. And frozen semen, remember, it's frozen and it's just waking up. It's not moving at the speed that fresh semen is moving. Even chilled semen does not move as fast as fresh semen, but faster than frozen. So the movement of the semen so it can arrive and penetrate the egg, it has to have some force to it. And that force is very important. It's very important to penetrate. And if you'd make the sperm swim longer, it dies before it arrives to the egg, or it weakens by the time and it doesn't push through. When you have a surgical, it's right on the eggs, it's instant in the right spot. Therefore, you have the least amount of travel and the most amount of chances of the sperm pushing itself through the eggs. So, that being said, the next topic is the amount of pups. I hear a lot of people, the semen wasn't good. I've only had 2 puppies or 3 puppies. Okay, no. Okay, that's not the case. You had 2 or 3 puppies is most likely because your female only produced so many fertile eggs. The female is responsible for how many fertile eggs she produces. The male, when we give you semen, there's 200, 150, 400, a billion count, so millions to billion counts of semen. You have more than enough semen to fertilize every single egg she can possibly produce. If she only produced so many puppies, is most likely because she's only produced so many eggs. Another situation could be that she absorbed some of the eggs, or some of the eggs were not fertile, not because she didn't produce them. So those are important as well. Timing is important because you match her at the right time. Some of the eggs are still fertile. They might lose fertility on the last day of heat, so on day 5 of heat. So your ovulation system is about 5 days approximately. So she ovulates between 6 and 10, that's day 1, and you have about a window of 5 days from that day. So let's say she ovulates on a Monday, you have all the way till Friday. Friday is a little late though, right? So the best days would be day 3 and 4. Those are the top days where she has finished producing as much eggs as possible, and at the same time, they're not died out yet, they have not reabsorbed yet, they're still there. So day 3 and 4 are your top days. Now, so that's the importance of the progesterone and the type of insemination so that you can understand the concept of how this works. And a lot of people don't understand this, and I'm teaching you guys so that you have an idea. So how many pups you have has a lot more to do with your female than anything else. The second part would be timing. Now, that's for the quantity. So we've established that timing is the most important factor of conceiving. The type of insemination is the second part. Infections. Very often, a lot of you don't put your dogs on antibiotics when you breed them. I highly recommend amoxicillin for the first 21 days. Yes, 3 weeks of amoxicillin on any dog the second she ovulates. So let's say she hits a 6, start popping her amoxicillin. Second she ovulates, start giving her amoxicillin for 21 days. This will save quite a few things like vaginitis, pyometra, and many other things from happening. These are bacterial infections. Could be from a dirty tube, could be from her sitting on something. It could be just because her body develops a bacteria on its own just from the level of heat from the progesterone. It could be many different things. Some dogs are just prone to making their own bacteria as well. So there's many different situations onto why a dog can get vaginitis or pyometra or any other type of infection. So day 21, I highly recommend starting amoxicillin and do it for 21 days. You can even go as far as 30 days of amoxicillin. It will not hurt. Don't worry about it. I know people say all kinds of sort of things, but it's been done many times, many medical journals behind it. It's pretty safe. There's no issues with it. In some cases, if you have dogs that have any thyroid issues or anything like that, that makes a dog miscarry, reabsorb the puppies after 35, 40 days or something like that, there's different things that can be done. I don't personally do it because I'm a big believer of survivor of the fittest. I want my dogs to conceive without too many issues, and I want them to be able to carry without too many issues, because most of the time these sort of things are genetic, but not necessarily. But if you have a really nice dog, you still want it to conceive, I understand. One of the things you could do is continue the antibiotic for the entire part of the pregnancy, switch to cephalexin maybe after 30 days, or start off with cephalexin and work your way back to amoxicillin, just back and forth maybe every 2 weeks until you're pretty close to 45 to 50 days. You should be okay to stop around there. Another one would be you need a veterinarian for this to check the progesterones of the dog throughout the cycle of her pregnancy. She might need supplementing with progesterones. So that could be a situation as well. But I think the antibiotic should do the trick in most cases for you guys. Now, so we got those parts established. Now the other one is this. The calculation of a C-section, like I said earlier, is very important. That's why you need the progesterone level to be on point, that you want to catch the ovulation time. So again, 62 days is okay too. I'm going to tell you now, 61 days, there's a very good chance that your pups will start dropping and dying within the first week to 10 days. They'll start dying, they'll start getting seizures, they'll start freezing up. That is a lack of development of the lungs, which is causing oxygen to the brain, which is making the dogs have seizures and dying. And a lot of you will make the mistake, especially beginners, of spending thousands and thousands of dollars of vet trying to save these newborn pups. They're not going to live. You just took them out too early. So one more time, also, is survivor of the fittest is one of those things as well. You might have some that survive that are stronger than others, although odds are against them. So your job is to always make sure that the odds are in your favor and in their favor. So by doing the proper calculations for your C-section and timing. Supplementing your dog during the pregnancy is also very important. You watch many pregnant women, if a lot of you have children or family members who've had kids you've been around, they take prenatals, they take all kinds of vitamins throughout the pregnancy. It's what I call insurance, right? So does it work 100%? We have some medical science behind it says it does. I've done it without it for many years and never had a problem, but chance favors the prepared mind, as I always say. Why not? It cannot hurt. Omega-3s, calcium, vitamin D, B12s, all of these things can help a person or a dog that she's pregnant or not. So why not supplement her extra while she's pregnant, just to ensure the maximum amount of health of the pups. If it works, wonderful. If it doesn't work, well, it didn't hurt. So why not do it? So there's that. Now, let's discuss heats. A lot of you skip heats. A lot of you have this persona. Now I'm going to get hate on this, and I don't care, but because science is science. Even veterinarians will give you very false information on this, but if you need medical journals, you guys can look them up, or I can send them to you. We've known this since the 70s. Skipping heats on a dog, in general, is very, very damaging. It increases your chance of pyometra. It increases your chance of the dog having split heats and all kinds of other issues that can cause infections, on and on and on. We also know that the younger the uterus is, the better and healthier the puppies are going to be, the easier she will recover, the easier it is for her. It's better for the dog to have puppies at a younger age than at an older age. And in a lot of countries, they make these stupid laws because you have these animal lovers who have zero science background who are making rules. Call them politicians. And they base this on emotion and feeling and comparing dogs to humans. And they say, oh, you can't breed a dog until she's 3 years old or 2 years old. And by then she's had 6, 7, 8, 9 heats even sometimes, depending on if she has a 4-month heat cycle or not. So that is so bad and so unhealthy for the dog. I cannot begin to tell you. I believe that's cruelty to the animal if you're going to breed it. Breeding the dog at a younger age, back to back to back, and retiring them young. Most of my dogs that I retire, you could never tell they had puppies. And the reason for it is they've had 2, 3, maybe even 4 litters. Maybe I've had dogs that had 6 litters and you couldn't even tell they had a litter. And the reason for it is by the time they were 4 years old, 5 years old at tops, they were already retired. And they had them, remember my dogs live a long time, 14, 15 years. So when they're already retired at that age, they recoup and they readjust quickly. That's much better for the dog. You get better puppies, you get healthier puppies. It's one of our reasons why our puppies are so solid, is because the timing that we use on our dogs, we do not wait for them to be too old to breed. Now, have we had litters at dogs older? Yes. And Magoo's sister had a litter at 9 years old, but she didn't conceive her first litter until she was 6.5. I didn't have access to her. She was in a different country and did not operate the proper way with the proper progesterones. They skipped heats and a lot of other issues that had went down the time that caused her not to take. That's another story for another day. But she dropped litters all the way she was 9. She's alive today, and you guys know she's 15 years old, so she's still around. But I don't recommend that. That's not your best way. I suggest to have them at a younger age and as fast as you can, so that you can retire them young, so they can enjoy the rest of their lives, as a family pet. So that's my advice on that. Now, you're going to hear all kinds of nonsense come after this, but no one will ever be able to back it up with a medical journal. They're going to back it up with a bunch of, breeder journals and other nonsense things that have zero science behind it. I assure you, this is what's best for your dog. Now, you have vets who will tell you what I just told you. When I first learned about it, I learned from a very top vet, Dr. Wilson in Michigan, who taught me about this. So you will hear it from very high-end vets who deal in reproduction, what's best for the dog. Those who don't deal in reproduction will tell you a bunch of nonsense, because most of the time they're against breeding or they just don't know any better. You'd be surprised how many vets don't know much, especially about reproduction. So the last part of the subject here is the pairing of dogs. How do I pair my dogs? Okay. This is a very delicate situation because there is not one rule fits all. It's a case-by-case situation. Every dog has something they bring to the table, and every dog produces. Yes, every dog produces, but what do they produce? That's the question. Do they produce themselves? Do they produce their mother? Do they produce their father? Do they produce a combination of the two? Do they produce their grandfather? What gene is most dominant in them? The only way for you to find that out is, by breeding them. Why is Muscletone's production so consistent? Very easy. We've bred the same traits for 20-some years. It's locked. So no matter what you do, you're going to get the same traits, because that's all the traits we have in our pedigree. When you look at our pedigree in Muscletone, it's not like no other. You're talking about 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 15 generations of extreme dogs all across the board, and every single dog in the pedigree. So your chances of producing more extreme is pretty high. Higher than any other pedigree you're going to find. When you breed it to something less extreme, you still have good chance of producing extreme, but now you're weakening the pedigree for the next generation. So when we bring up our dogs and we say, hey, here's your shot at $3,000, for example. Well, how's he produced? If you don't know what Muscletone produces, you're not a real breeder and you don't understand and you have not been studying the things. Or you're just new and you don't know yet. So we explain to people all the time, this is Muscletone, guys. We have the proof is in the pudding. How many extremes have we produced? 3, 4, 500. And we have the largest extremes. We've always had the largest extremes. Year after year, generation after generation. No one has defeated us. So we've locked it down to a science, and we've proved it through our work, not just by bragging on the internet like most people do. We have stacked off. We have traveled the world, and legend after legend after legend have made their marks in the American bully industry. So we've done our work. We don't really need to say much. If you're not paying attention, you're not doing homework. So that's when I tell you, when you go to pair, you have to find out what dog is producing what trait, and then what is trades are your dogs producing as well. Not what do they have themselves, but what they're passing on, so that you can pair them properly. Why is it easier in muscle toners? Like I said, it's because of the consistency we've had for so many generations that everything comes out the same. You're gonna get rear, you're gonna get bone, you're gonna get head, you're gonna get chest spread, you're gonna get shoulders. It's just you're gonna get it every time, every single time. The heavier the muscle tone pedigree is, the heavier, massive dogs you're gonna get. You're gonna get healthy dogs, athletic dogs, because that's what we produce. Unlike what people try to tell you, oh, the dogs lack this, or they're on. No, it's not true. Our dogs, 10, 12, 14, 15-year-old legends, are still alive when everyone else's are gone, and they're athletic, they move, they're still breeding, they still have good semen. I mean, everything is on point. So we've proved ourselves throughout the years, and that's what everybody's trying to do, is prove themselves, and that requires time, and now we've achieved that time. So that is why our dogs are more consistent. On your end, if you're choosing a non-muscle tone dog, then you need to figure out what traits that particular dog is producing, what trait is your dog producing, and how do I combine them together to get the traits I want. That is how I bred until I built muscle tone. It was exactly like that, by observing the productions of each dog and watching which trait they were most dominant in, and combining with the most dominant traits of each female I had. So every one of my females were first bred in house before they were outcrossed, so that I knew how she worked, and I watched how the other studs worked, and then I brought them together. This is why the most successful breedings with Cashbot were here. The most successful breeding with Denzel was with Muscle Tone. The most successful breeding with Dax was at Muscle Tone. The most successful breeding with, what's his name? Was it? Havoc was with us. I mean, I can go on the list. We've used a lot of outside studs, and the most impressive, full, consistent litters were always done by Muscle Tone. It's because of the calculation and the method of knowing what each dog produced and what female was best for that male, based on not what the dog was, but what they were doing when they were bred. So that is how we built Muscle Tone. I'm giving you the secret now because we don't need it anymore, because now we have the consistency that we need. Now, of course, it's much easier to just buy the consistent dogs that you need, buy a Muscle Tone female, breed to a Muscle Tone male, and produce all the consistency that you guys need. That's what a lot of people are doing today, that they're building off of that, and that's nothing wrong with that. I mean, it's the cheapest and most efficient way for sure. But if you're trying to do something different, you know, I'm not against it. I want everybody to be able to succeed in some way, somehow. I'm telling you how to do it right, so that you guys can eventually have the consistency that we have. So that's my advice to you guys for today. That it concludes our episode for Muscletonebullys today, and we're gonna have another one probably within a week or so. I've been doing episodes every 2 weeks now instead of 1 week. I've been slowing down because it's the summertime, so the next episode will probably be in 2 more weeks from now. So stay tuned. Follow us on YouTube at Muscletonebullys for more episodes.